Hi everyone, Mícheál Halpin here, just some random carry guy on the internet again. And in today's video I'm going to go through all the different things I bring on standard road rides. So basically my everyday carry. So I'm going to talk about things like saddlebags, tool bottle, waterproof phone pouch, and handlebar bags. Now the first thing I'm going to talk about is the traditional saddlebag that most people have on their bikes, on their road bikes when they go out for a spin. So this is normally something I'm going to bring on my good bike. My whole view on things is if you're going cycling, you should be pretty much prepared for nearly any eventuality. I don't ever want to have to ring somebody to pick me up because I get a flat tire or, a minor mechanical. I don't want to have to call my wife to come and get me. So when I'm packing a bag to go for a cycle, I want to make sure that I have the tools, the spares I need to cover 95% of what I'm going to see on the road. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is this Castelli XL saddlebag. Now I've had this saddlebag probably 5-6 years. You can actually see it's pretty worn. So you can see on top, if I bring it over here, you can see it's worn through almost there. On the bottom, I have tape. Actually, on the inside of this, I have a part 2 boot tube or emergency boot for a tire on the inside, just to give it a bit more waterproofing. This bag, the reason I picked out this one to begin with is, and I tried other bags before, but for my good bike, Specialized Tarmac, I wanted this to be as clean looking as possible. So what I like about this is there's actually a little container on the bottom to put a mini pump in. So that's the first thing on any of my bikes. I'm going to have a pump typically to inflate tires. So that just hangs off the bottom. So I'll take that out. Now I'm not going to go through everything in the bag. Look, this is a pretty standard setup for what most people have. I have a Crank Brothers multi-tool, including chain tool on it. So that's very useful if you ever ever have to do any chain work. Fortunately, I've never had to, but I have been out on rides with people that have. And when we didn't have tools or spares, nightmare. So I'm always going to try and bring one of these now wherever possible. So that's the first thing. Crank Brothers tool, I think this one is maybe 30 euros, something like that. Next thing I carry is tire levers. It's part 2 tire levers, probably don't need 3 of them, but with the Mavic wheels I have, they're actually kind of tight to get on, so you have to need 2 to change a tire. Couple of small cable ties, always useful. And this is probably something not everybody's going to do, but I think it's very useful. My spirit tube is actually wrapped inside a bag, and in that bag is talcum powder. So the whole idea is, firstly, if there's any rubbing, I'll see it in the bag first, because there's nothing worse than taking out a spare tube, and finding there's a hole being rubbed into it from your multi-tool. So that's the first thing. Talcum powder also helps. If there's any water in there, it makes it easier from actually putting the tire back in. The last couple of things I have in here, and this is a pretty old one, a small patch kit. I've never had to use this. I'm a little bit wary that over time the glue on these fail down. They're not as permanent as the older type patch kits. We get a tube of glue and the patches separately. But just something I can fit on my saddlebag, that's always going to be in there. So that's the first thing. And this is on my good bike. So whether I'm doing, a 1 or 2 hour spin on my own in the summer, whether I'm going to the Alps, whether I'm, doing something like the Wicklow 200, and I'm out there for 8 or 9 hours, that set should be enough to get me home. Now, next up is a tool set I carry on my winter bike. And this is in various multiple companies make these. This one is from Muc-Off, and it's called a tool bottle. So the whole idea is, instead of having a bag under your saddle, you can get a bottle like this and just put it into a regular bottle cage. Now, some people in the old days, you see some pros will cut off the top of a bottle or a bead on, shove some things in there. I like this because it's fully waterproof. It's about €8, so it's not too expensive. And I carry the exact same stuff that I carry in my saddlebag. So I have tire levers, tire levers, zip ties. I have little patch kit, and then I also have a multi-tool shoved inside there. The reason I have this, and this lives, as I said, on my winter bike, I found that tools in a saddlebag will rust over time, especially if you're using them in bad weather. So being in Ireland, I'm out in all sorts of shite. This is perfect. Nothing gets wet in this. You have to make sure it's nice and tight, because if you just have loose tools in there, they'll wreck your head rattling. Sometimes what I'll actually do, and I've taken it out of this one, I have to shove one back in. I'll get a set of latex gloves and just shove them in to pad it out. So that way, if I am doing any mechanicals in the middle of winter, my hands stay clean as well. So definitely, if you're cycling in bad weather, get one of these. It does mean you're losing one of your 2 bottle cages, but in the middle of winter, I'm never going to be out long enough to empty 2 bottles anyway. I'm normally going to cycle for an hour and a half. If I need to stop, I'll go to a cafe, I'll go to a shop, not an issue. So I'd rather have something that's going to keep my spares, my tools in better equipment, in better order, and just bring 1 bottle. Now, next up we have a phone case. Waterproof phone case. This example is from Rapha. Doesn't really matter where it's from. Reason I have this, and this is something I obviously bring with me on every cycle. Years ago, when we were doing Mícheál, I had my phone in my jersey pocket, rain cape over, and rain cape kept the rain off, but not the sweat off. So by the end of the day, my phone was dead. So now I never go cycling without this. 100%. This is with me on every single cycle that I do, just to mind the phone. So obviously within this, I have my phone, Samsung Galaxy. Interesting thing on the back, a little magnet or a little kind of metal adhesive strip that sticks to my phone case. That's very useful because I have a tool from Zwift that I can put into my Garmin mount and then click the phone to the front of the bike. So very useful. Obviously this goes with me everywhere. I'm not going to talk about the tech stuff, the lights and the Garmin I have. Obviously need phone for those. I use the beacon when I'm cycling, but even just for general contact, phone is always with me. But within the phone case itself, again, it's all the other stuff that I'm going to bring with me. Now I touched on these before, but obviously a mask. Just for emergencies. Now I don't tend to use it that often, but every now and again we might stop off at a coffee shop or at a shop, and if nobody has a mask, you can't go in. So that's just there because it's COVID times. Now in my case, there's a main compartment, and then there's a separate side compartment here. So the first thing I have in that is a small little plastic bag with money. So you can see a few euros here, a few coins. Again, just out and about, stop for a coffee. But I also keep some medical stuff in here. Not much, but just a few bits and pieces to get me through. So a few band-aids, a few plasters, some allergy tablets. Sometimes just, allergies. They happen. I keep some Duralite. So electrolytes, basically, instead of paying, 5 times what they're worth to get a named brand, these are the ones you give kids or anybody, bad stomach. Salt and sugar, that's all it is. Good to have them. And I also keep some painkillers, just in case. So just paracetamol, nothing too strong, because if you are hurt and damaged, you don't want to keep overstraining it, but just take the edge off. And finally, I keep an emergency, if I can get it out, an emergency Imodium, just because, you know, nearly had an incident in France once. But that's always with me. And the reason I keep, especially the money inside the plastic bag, again, when you stop at a coffee shop, pull this out, and then instead of fumbling through pockets trying to find what you have, it's just there. So it's very easy to grab it. Even when you got gloves on, pull it out, walk into the shop, you're ready to go. Now I also use this pouch as an opportunity to carry a few other things, and I think these are things that probably 98% of people won't have, but again, they can get you out of a lot of trouble. First one, a little bit unusual, but it's a 2.5mm Allen key. Not something I use very often. The only use case I have for this, to be perfectly honest, is for my my Garmin mount. So again, on the different bikes, sometimes it gets a bang, or sometimes, you know, if you're lifting it in and out of cars, it might move around. That's just a good way to tighten it up, put it in place. So it's so small, and because again, I use this whether I'm on good bike or the winter bike, doesn't really matter, that's always with me. So that's one thing. Now the one tool I think most people won't have, and I know this for a fact because I've seen a few examples where either we struggled or we saw other people struggling because they didn't have one of these, is a pair of quick link pliers. So as you can see, these ones come from Wolftooth. So they're not the cheapest. I think maybe 40 euros off the top of my head. It's been a while since I got them. But you know, you pick them up, they feel quality. You know, they're not cheap plasticky ones. These are proper metal quick link pliers. So the idea is, if I can put this somewhere here, if you need to either install or remove quick links, these are a perfect tool to do it. What I really like about these is when you open them up, there's space inside for 2 sets of quick links. Now, I've been on sportives where at a food stop, we heard a public announcement saying, hey, does anybody have a quick link? Please come to mechanic's tent. Because somebody had broken a chain and the mechanics had no quick links at all. So this guy could not get back on the road. There was also another incident. We're out, a few of us in the Wicklow Mountains, and we had an issue where one of the guys had just changed his chain, and going back up, I think the Wicklow Gap, chain broke within a few hundred meters. So we free-wheeled onto the cafe, and even though it was quite busy, you know, we probably had 30, 40, 50 cyclists, nobody had quick links. We were stuck there for about an hour and a half until we met somebody who owned a bike shop, and he didn't even have quick links. He had to cycle home, and after his cycle he came back in his car to sort it out, just for the sake of something that's worth, you know, a few euros. Now I actually carry 11 speed and 9 speed quick links. So my bikes are, I have a 9 speed, 10 speed and 11 speed road bikes. The 9 speed will actually work with 9 speed chain, obviously, but I've also used them in 10 speed. So that'll actually work for the vast majority of people. My other bike then being 11 speed, I have 11 speed specific ones. As far as I know, they're not going to work with 12 speed. I have a different setup for my mountain bike, which is 12 speed. I'll talk about that some other day, but I would highly recommend that to anyone. Again, it's not cheap, so that's why it doesn't live in each separate tool case. That just comes with me all the time. Now the final things I have inside here, again, that I bring with me everywhere. One is, again, just an emergency tire boot. So I touched on these before, but essentially, if you get a bad split in the sidewall, you can put that in, stop the tube coming out, just enough to get you home. Now this is something, and again it's kind of hard to see, but this little connector will allow you to screw onto a Presta valve So your standard road tire or your standard road tube. And it's a Presta to schraeder converter. So the whole idea with this is if you don't have a pump with you, you can stop off at a petrol station or a gas station in the US and use the standard air for car tires to inflate your tubes. So this thing is only about €1. You know, it's really, really cheap. Doesn't take up any space. I've never had to use it. I'd urge caution. I know I'll put a link in here. People have blown up their wheel using these things, but could definitely get you out of a bad pinch.
For the day, we are taking it in turns with the pumping, by the way. Attempt number 27 to get the tubeless to seat. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
No.
Whoa. Oh shit.
And the final thing I have, again that I carry with me all the time, just in case, is front door key. And this little thing is a keyed in for something I'm going to talk about in a second, but can be, again, very useful to have with you all the time. So that's my rain pouch. This one I think was about 25-30 euros, but I've had it 5-6 years. C-Sense do one for 15 euros, I think. I haven't tested it, but I assume it's pretty similar. So it doesn't really matter which brand, but that's a Rapha one. I've had zero issues with it. Lasted for years. Now the last thing I'm going to talk about is this. It's my Handlebar Bag. Most recently did a video about it. This is one from C-Sense. This isn't something I'm going to bring with me on every ride, but in particular on my winter bike, I'm definitely going to bring this. It's kind of a hipster bag, you know, not everybody sees the need for it. You might get some slagging about it, but it's definitely practical. I hate putting things into my back pockets, especially if I have in bad weather where I have multiple layers on and I don't want to have to be opening a coat to get at something, you know, in and out, or don't want to risk tearing some of the expensive jackets or something like that. So this is a must, I think, for, you know, anytime you're out and about for a long period. I probably wouldn't bring this somewhere like the Alps. You know, if I'm in a group, I'm not going to rock, you know, probably won't rock up to the Wicklow 200 with this. Might do. You know, it's not the most aero, but neither am I. So, but definitely for a lot of the day-to-day stuff, I'll bring this. I don't bring this on the bike I use for going to the shop, just because I have cross-style brake levers on it, so it just won't fit. But, you know, again, very easy to move around. Essentially anything that's in your back pockets you can put in here, but I also keep a few extra bits as well. Now again, so first thing, snacks, like flavins, flapjacks, they just last, they don't melt. This is kind of unusual. I'm not going to bring this all the time, but these are little hand warmers. So just, there's been a few days I've been out where it's like a few degrees, you know, sub-zero, or Celsius, not Fahrenheit. So never really needed them, but, you know, handy to have. Don't take up too much space. This is a must, I think. This is just a merino buff, so, you know, you can... Scarf, face mask, beanie. So it's a very flexible piece of kit. I bring it with me all the time when I'm if I have this bag and if I'm not wearing it, I'll just keep it in it. If it is cold, I'll just bring it. Some other stuff I'm going to keep in here, again, that are very useful, and you're not going to use them all the time, but outside of the standard snacks, butter. Jam cream of choice, again, sometimes you just forget to put it on before you go. If you're out for a very long day, you might need to top up. Got a pack of 10 of these, very useful, just have it in there, doesn't leak or anything. I might actually try and get, if I get sun cream in this format as well, I'll definitely add in some. I haven't found anything that small yet, but That's a must-have. And alongside that, I keep some untapped maple syrup. I use these instead of energy gels. Hard to get them in Ireland. They're expensive, but if I get my hand on some more, I'll definitely keep that topped up. And the last thing I bring with me all the time is this hip lock. So this is basically just a reinforced zip tie. The idea is if you stop off for a coffee, you can use this to like chain the good bike to like a fence or something like that, chain it to another bike. The keys that I had earlier, which I can't find now, that's what it's for. So the key I mentioned earlier just goes in here, unlocks it. It's very light, only a few grams, lives in here. I'm not going to bring it on every ride, but again, if I have the handlebar bag, that's it. And that's going to live in there. So those are essentially the different things I'm going to bring on standard road rides. I will do another video at some stage with what I bring mountain biking, kind of a different format there where I have a bigger tool roll inside my backpack, but I'm new to mountain biking, so I'm still trying to figure out what do I actually need, what's overkill. Hopefully these are a few good ideas to get you up and running, or if you're already doing a lot of cycling, there might be a few tips in there, a few nuggets to add in. Thanks for watching the video, and if you like it, hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more. Stay safe.